Alright, I'm gonna video this to put up real fast, as quick as I can anyway. Putting my engine back together for the B16, my turbo build. This is gonna be a good test for the year for everybody to be able to watch and learn from, including myself. I never went this far into an engine ever before myself. I've watched people do it. I've watched lots of shenanigans about this. I'm reusing, if you've been following, rods and pistons, wrist pins, crank. The only thing new I'm putting inside the block is the mains on the crank bearings themselves. And it's in there. I'm not going to sit here and uncover it. Just like that, though, sitting on the engine stand, just a crank in it with King's bearings. That's all the difference right now. So, don't mind the mess that's around here. I'm going to clean every little part as it goes together, like crazy meticulous. I had old cleaner pans and purple clean and hot water and all kinds of good stuff up here to clean the inside of the block before that went together, and that's why it's all bagged up and kept away from all the dirt and debris that's in here. Anyways, for any further ado, let me focus the camera and the light here a little better if we can. And you can kind of see the marks on the piston there. If I focus the light and the camera just right. Okay, there we go. We got press marks, basically. I use the press to push them off their old rods and wrist pins. Basically, we separated two different sets of rods and pistons. Okay. Reason being, if you ain't been following, yeah, see the daylight through the top of that piston? Yeah. Alright, yeah. That was my bad on a timing belt being loose. Timing belt didn't break, but did that to my motor. I'm trying to go racing this year, so. The other engine that we tore apart, that we pulled parts from, had a bad rod bearing, and it kind of damaged the crank. So I'm not going to use that crank, and I'm not going to use those rods, or those rod bearings, obviously. I am going to reuse them rods, them rod bearings, them pistons that didn't break, and actually were already seated with those rings into that block. That crank belonged to these rods. So, I used some heat. I put them back together because they're pressed to fit. You can kind of see the heat marks. You don't have to get rods red hot. You just gotta heat them up enough to kind of blue them a little bit, and you'll see what that entails. If you ever heat them up, you can kind of see the little bit of discoloration there. Didn't get red hot at all, just hot enough to obviously take away all the moisture out of the rod and expand the metal enough to just slide the wrist pin all the way back through it, and then kind of center it as good as you can. If you can't get it completely centered, you stick it back in the press over there and you center it just a little bit. And then on the way back through, I just had to sit here and I got a rod bearing stuck here. I made sure to take the rings. See, this is the secondary, this is the top, and this is the only one I had a problem with of all these after I was done, from pushing on the area right about here or so, and I can kind of actually feel it with my finger. So I really hope this goes over well through the season. We're gonna find out. I'm sure a lot of people are going to laugh at this shit. I don't care. So, it's catching because I'm going sideways on it. But, point being here is the ring will roll through that spot. Okay. I checked the first ring and the second ring for the compression on all of these to make sure that they'll still go back into their spot after I was done pressing them, because I'm really on a tight budget. Had no choice. Anyway, this is purely just a really good demonstration. This year is going to be of a test basically on reusing parts, pressing things. Like I really don't like doing this kind of shit and putting marks on parts that go inside a motor, but I've seen people do some really rude shit and run motors for years. I want to test this kind of theory and see if I can get away with it, at least on low power levels. We're not really trying to push more than 10 to 15 psi at autocross, but I am going to turbo this engine and tune it and make it go fast. We might abuse it later down through the year on the drag strip, but that little sedan over there is what it's going to go in. Yeah, I race autocross, if you know and you follow. Got an engine to build before I can get back out there, guys. So, without further ado, I'm going to get back to it. So, that's just the update on what's going on here. Peace.